Welcome back to our podcast. Tony Smith here today with you, and I've got a treat for you. We have brought in today one of the best agents of all time, somebody that we're thrilled about, that we've been working with for a while, right here in Las Vegas, Nevada, Mr. Dan Mumm. The first thing I'd like to check in with you is, could you give a little history for us? How long in the business? Let's go through the transaction count. What went on in 2025 for you?
Yeah, so in 2025, 134 listings taken, which just sent over to you, is my best year, which is great. Ended up around 1.7 income to me. So that was my best year, which a little bit better than the year before, but overall, I think I'm more excited about this year and what's to come. But I started out 10 years ago, 2015, I got my license, and then it was basically just slow and consistent growth. Mike talks about 20% growth year over year. And if you do those numbers over 10 years, that gets you to where I am now, I would say.
Yeah. So you started 10 years ago and virtually have had a growth, incremental growth every year? Any setbacks?
not linear. So like 22 to 23, it was a very small growth. And then 23 to 24, a little bit bigger. And then early on, there was a couple of years where it was pretty consistent for 2 years at a time. But I would say overall, yeah, it's been just slow and steady growth over time.
It's outstanding. You know, whenever we do these podcasts and we get to talk to a great agent, a lot of times the audience will say, you know, there must be some kind of a special background or something out of the ordinary that caused you to do that and get to that level. Tell everybody about what you did before this.
Yeah, so I worked in a dietary supplement company, so nothing really special there. And you're right, I get that question all the time. You know, what's the secret? What was the secret getting from 40 to 70? And there's no secrets, as you know. So there's no special sauce or secret ingredients. But yeah, I just worked in a normal job before. It wasn't sales, wasn't direct sales. It was in customer service. I think the only thing that it helped me with is I was on the phone for 8 hours a day. You had to ask to take a lunch break. So I was disciplined in that way, I guess, where I was just used to sitting and focusing. And we had scripts to follow. So I think that did actually help. It wasn't direct selling, but it taught you to stay focused on a conversation, have to hit certain points.
So you had to follow, you had scripts, and you had to follow a work schedule and a workflow, and you couldn't bounce in and out when you wanted. So you had some discipline that you'd built in.
Yeah,
but I don't think that discipline that didn't happen then. Were you disciplined early on?
I would say so, yeah. I mean, I was an athlete, so I think that carries over a lot. Just being willing to do hard things every day translates to what we do, I would say.
Okay. And hockey, right?
Yeah, ice hockey.
So to what level of hockey did you get to?
Played in college and then wasn't good enough to go any further than that. So that was the limit for me.
So and was this something that you started as a little kid playing hockey?
Yeah, I played other sports. I actually got into it a little bit late. So like early teenage years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where did you play hockey?
New Jersey and then upstate New York. So I think that's actually why I became the person that I am, because I didn't start early. So a lot of people who start early, they have a lot of talent and skill, and that kind of carries them. I started in my early teen years, which is super late, as you know, for a sport or certain sports. So I had to work 2 to 3 times as hard just to get the basics down. And I think that at the time I didn't enjoy it, but that actually translates a lot.
So you had to claw your way up, starting late.
Absolutely.
Okay. So how'd you end up from New Jersey here?
Job opportunity at that supplement company. So just by happenstance, ended up here in Vegas, and turns out it was the best decision I ever made. When I was at that company, the best income year I had, I was making $55,000 a year. So quite a jump to what we've been able to do now.
Yeah. And what was the income in 2025 again?
So for me personally, it's 1.7.
1.7.
Yeah.
So you go from this $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year job to 1.7 over 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much.
What do you think was, like, if you had to identify the 2 or 3 habits or the 2 or 3 things that propelled you like that, what were they?
Yeah, that's a good question. Habits are the most crucial thing. So it's interesting to talk about that. I would say the basic routine that I have is the number one asset. I look at my schedule as my most important asset that I have.
Okay.
So my mornings, I don't go on appointments until after 12. Every day after 12, I go on appointments. I don't like prospecting too much in the afternoons because I like to set that time aside to meet with people. And I like to, you talked about, you don't want to save your prospecting for later if you don't get it done in the morning, right? So if I know in the afternoons I'm not going to prospect at all, so my only time to get it done is in the morning. So that's a really simple schedule I think most people could follow, is just until 12 is generating, after 12 is meeting people. It's very simple, but if you do that for 10 years straight, it leads to some pretty big results, I would say.
So think about the takeaway. Simple schedule. and then discipline to those simple habits for 10 years, and you make some path. It's phenomenal to hear it. Right?
Yeah,
So that was one. What was two?
Yeah, I would say another thing is the ability to say no when you need to. I think you mentioned this recently too, but I think as a listing agent, that's one of the most important things. One of the most important habits that we can develop is the ability to say no. It doesn't mean turning deals down. It just means that you have to be able to confront people. Okay. And at certain times, you have to be willing to say no. I had a seller recently I was talking to where he was going on and on about a certain price that he had to have. And it was during the presentation. And I told him, I listened to what he had to say, and I said, I think, yeah, you have a really tough decision to make then if you want to sell this house or not.
Okay.
And that level of confrontation is when he finally turned around and said, okay, well, what if we start at your price then? So I think that's another important one.
So saying no. A big portion of your career, the market was pretty robust in Las Vegas.
Yeah, didn't have to say no a lot back then.
So you went through this window of time like a lot of agents did, 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago, where, everything you touch is selling. And then we went through the COVID window where everything was selling. And then what adjustments did you have to make now with more of a normal market?
That's a great question. That was all with you, really. That's around the time when we started working together. So I had to develop a system for managing inventory. Okay. And that was mostly what we worked on this last year. So yeah, I think every agent needs to have some kind of system for how you're managing it. You're right. In the past, there was literally no system. It was just, you listed it and it sold and that was it.
Yeah.
So now it's basically a 21-day cycle.
All right.
I think the cornerstone of it is you have to fulfill your promises to your sellers. So every week I call them, and when I take the listing, I tell them, I'm going to call you Monday between 8 a.m. and noon every single week. No matter what, I'm going to give you a progress report. Just doing that and just fulfilling on that promise honestly solves 90% of your issues, I think. So week one, when I do that, I tell them what we've done to get the home sold, what we've been working on as far as marketing, photos, outreach. Week two, if I feel like we might need to adjust, I'm setting them up for a price adjustment. And then the third week is when I typically ask. Sometimes I'll ask on that second call at week two if they're very motivated, but that's pretty much it. And then week four, I'm evaluating if I really want that listing or not, if they've said no. And then if I feel like I do still want it, then we'll talk about meeting again at week 5, basically.
So it's just it's an incremental system that you've created, this 21-day cycle, and then if we need to meet again, we're going to meet.
Right.
How many listings are you carrying these days?
On average, between 20 to 30. A little bit less right now because we just sold a bunch.
Yeah, so you've been working the system, they've sell through, but 20 to 30, that's a lot more than you were carrying, right?
Yeah, I would say the average for first few years of my career, when I was starting to get pretty productive, it was like 10 to 12.
Yeah. And so do you end up giving a lot of listings back?
Not as many anymore, but I think I've become more willing to give them back, which is ironically, when you're willing to give them back, I think that's when you get the results you want. Going back to saying no, that's a form of saying no, right? I think you brought this up, how much emotional price am I willing to pay to carry some of these listings? So I think asking myself that question helps. And I think the key is just being willing to give it back. And then oftentimes you'll find that the seller, once you reach that level of confrontation, that's when the seller finally says, okay, so I have to seriously think about if I want to sell this or not. What's the price that you're recommending?
Okay, yeah. I just hear Mike ringing in our ears that says you have to be unattached to the outcome.
Right.
And as soon as you're truly unattached to the outcome, then people tend to listen to your message better.
Right. And if not, then you move on and next.
Yeah. So what is the biggest challenges you're faced with these days with this kind of production? 150, 160, next year 165 deals. What are you dealing with? What's the challenge?
That's a great question. I think it's sorting and qualifying faster. I think the more productive you are, you have to be able to qualify faster. And I think what Mike would say, what that means is being stronger in your qualifying. So even less as far as the chit chat, the casual conversations, the softening of certain things, the avoiding of certain hard questions. I've noticed in my career that to be more productive, I just had to get even stronger in my presenting and qualifying. If you're going to do 165 deals, you can't be following up on the same lead more than 4 or 5 times if they're not going to be taking action.
Okay. So you don't have a ton of leads, but you're asking more direct qualifying questions, and you're just moving the needle faster that way.
Do you still need to sell your home? If so, when can we meet? Great. Let's set an appointment for Tuesday at 2. I have a few questions I need to ask, and that's it. We're not deviating from that.
So pure, so pure. What's your best source of business today?
I would say, as far as income goes, my database is still my best.
Okay.
And then the rest is a really big combination. I'm a big believer in a lot of sources of business. I think that's where some people go wrong, is they just have 2 or 3. So for me, it's database, and then expired, for sale by owner, agent referrals through the Mike Ferry network. We do a lot there because I go to all the events and I'm constantly talking to people here. Online reviews, so combination of all those. And then attorneys, we've started to work.
Started to bring attorneys in. So you've got multiple sources that you're tapping on all the time, and you have listings coming from all those sources.
Yeah, and you've helped me develop a call directive. So every day when I prospect, I have just a little checklist that I go through. I got in trouble when I got away from that. Now I'm going back to that, where it's just, you do the expireds, then you do the for sale by owners, then you do your 10 database calls, and I just follow that. It's very simple, and again, it's just simple scales. If you just do the simple stuff, it works.
Man, it sounds so much more logical than trying to make an emotional decision how you're going to find your business. You just logically work through it day in and day out. You go, do you get bored?
I don't really, to be honest. I think what we do is so exciting in real estate that every client is so different that I don't really get too bored doing it, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I think the better you get and the more you develop your skills, just getting better at something I think is exciting. So sometimes when I get bored, that's kind of the remedy is I think about how can I get better? How can I carve out this one corner of the business and just get excellent at that?
Okay.
And it's just kind of a game within the game.
Yeah. So, I can just hear people listening in and to this. They say you must have like a whole tribe and team of people running around to do this kind of production. Describe for everybody what your team looks like.
Yeah, it's pretty small. So I have 2 assistants, and then a runner, a virtual assistant, and a buyer's agent. So that's pretty much it.
So it's just some great support staff and 1 buyer's agent.
Correct. There's no other agents that are selling, or not this big team. Or I used to have more. I used to have 3 buyer's agents, and then I found that I don't like leadership that much.
Okay.
I'm not great as a leader. I'm better as a salesperson, so I'm leaning into that strength.
Okay.
And I just found having 1 really good agent to support me is better than having 3 mediocre ones. She actually does more than the 3 were combined, so it's worked better for us.
And she's making great living. We talked about that, and everybody wins in that thing.
Yeah.
So did you ever have the desire to go this big, enormous team thing like you hear about everywhere today?
Yeah, I did. Unfortunately, I got a little bit suckered into it. That's when I had 3 buyer's agents, when everyone was doing it back in 22.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just learn quickly that you spend so much time managing, holding accountable, training, retraining, constantly worrying if they're going to leave or go somewhere else. So all of that time, as Mike's always told us, if you just spend it on personal production, I've just found it's the most profitable time that we can spend.
Okay. I can also hear the audience saying you must have a big, massive marketing campaign. I mean, do you spend a fortune to get this business?
No. Luckily, I'd say that's one of the things that I've done right is we don't really spend any money on outbound marketing or advertising. We do events for our clients. That's probably our biggest line item budget, but that's really it.
So you run in a really super high profit margin.
Yeah, around 80%, I would say. So 75, 80%.
We talked about this recently, that the average small business in North America, just a regular business out there, has a 10 to 12% profit margin. And then for agents that do like Dan is doing, that run a simple but very direct business, can have 70, 80% profit margin. Risk versus reward is off the charts, right? So what's next? What's your eye on? What are you thinking about?
Well, Mike's told me the goal for this year, which I need your help with. That's 165 listings taken.
Yep.
And so just looking at, I think if you only focus on listings taken, everything else kind of takes care of itself. So that's really my only focus. I had a great start this year. Took 13 so far this year. So it's been off. I'm on track as of now.
That's great.
Just have to keep that pace going. And I think one other thing, going back to earlier, you asked what my habits were from the beginning that might have set me up.
Yep.
I think the last thing that I might have done differently was that I committed to being a listing agent very early. And I think a lot of agents still try and dabble in both, and I totally understand it. It's just what works for me. But I think it's way easier to be world-class at one thing than 2 things. I think that's nearly impossible. I think listing agents and buyer's agents, they're totally different skills. Working with buyers wreaks havoc on your schedule. I don't know how people do it so much. But for me, I decided early that I was okay giving away that side of the business if I could just become world-class at this, because that was going to lead to more income, and that's worked well.
Wow. It's a gift to be able to do that. How early, when you say early, I decided to be a listing agent, like how early in your career?
I would say when I was around 30 to 40 transactions a year, I was phasing them out pretty significantly to the point where I was only working sellers that were buying, that were mine, someone that was just going to look at 1 or 2 houses. And then I would say in the last 3 years, I stopped altogether. My mom bought my buyer's agent.
And
I think it's just easier. And I think the pushback that we often hear is, well, this one's super easy. I hate to give away, whatever it is, half of a deal to just do this super easy buyer. And that might be true, but some of them are also way harder than you expect, and it all kind of balances out. So for me, it's just been easier to pass off all of that so I can focus on what I'm best in the world at.
Okay, so you pick up lane and you stick to it, and it pays really well.
Right.
Okay, so production still drives you, like you just production.
Yeah.
Drives you.
Absolutely.
Now, this last year, you took a little more time off.
Yeah.
So
yeah, in the summer, spent almost a month in Switzerland. My fiance is Swiss, so that's been fun. And then, for Christmas, we did another 2 weeks, and we traveled a ton in between that. It was the most amount of time off that we've taken, actually.
Okay, did it have a big negative impact on your business being gone?
No, I mean, theoretically, if I didn't, I probably could have produced more, but I do think it's helped me focus because when you know that you only have limited time, I think the less time you have, you actually make use of that time better. So in that way, I think it's helped sharpen me a little bit.
Yeah. It's another misconception that, in the Mike Ferry system that you think in order to succeed at a high level, you have to work 24/7 and turn in 60, 70, 80-hour work weeks to produce a lot of income. And Mike, he's never said that. From day one, he says, design a schedule for yourself, follow that schedule, get really good at what you do your job, and then go enjoy your life, which it sounds like you.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. You're 100% right. Mike's always taught that, I feel like, and it is a very common misconception that everyone should work 7 days a week and go crazy. I think what Mike teaches is that we should design our business around the life and lifestyle that we want. Now, that means you have to work in the time you're supposed to be working.
Right.
And every year in my business, I've worked, I would say, less total hours, but the times when I'm working, I'm way more focused on high impact activities that are actually moving the needle. So that's been the progression.
Yeah. How do you keep all that stuff out of your world? There's a million distractions that we all have every day. How do you keep that stuff out?
That's a good question. That's something I've done well overall. In the morning, I try and do the first 3 hours. I call it for my sage brain, like the best part of my brain that doesn't get distracted, like the monkey brain and the all of the crazy stuff. So no social media. I block my email until 11 a.m. I can't even get into it. I use an app, the Freedom app, so I can't literally log into my email if I want to until 11.
Good.
So the first 3 hours of the day, I find that's just my best time to get anything meaningful done from the time that I wake up until usually around, I would say I start looking at email around 11, but sometimes I get sucked into stuff around 10, 10:30. But by then, all of the outbound prospecting is done.
Wow. Okay, so you literally have put this box around yourself that you don't even have access to some of the things that are the anchors for other real estate agents.
Yeah, and I personally, this is just me, I don't like social media at all. I'm personally not on it at all. I think it's a toxic waste dump of negativity, but that's just my opinion. I know some agents use it and they get business from it and it's great. That's just for me. I think it's very distracting and not worth my personal time. So some stuff I think we just need to unplug from altogether.
And do you do this a little bit? Like you do actually unplug from some of the technology at a little larger scale, don't you?
Yeah, I do disconnected days. So I try and do Tuesdays most weeks where I have a whole day of no email and no texting. So that takes a lot of work to set that up, and it's not easy at scale and high production. And so that basically becomes a full outbound prospecting day of just lead generating purely with nothing else. It's not easy to do. I try and do all my Monday calls. That's when I call all my clients. So that sets it up nicely for the Tuesday because no one's really waiting to hear from me. Everyone's kind of taken care of. But that's helped me a lot.
So you literally have this exemplary customer service. Your clients are happy with you. You have this incredible sell-through rate, and you're still able to detach a little bit from the stuff that agents would say you could never leave for a second.
Yeah. I think once you do it a lot, you realize that's a good question. How do you still deliver the exemplary service without being too personally involved? It just comes with systems and doing it over a long period of time. I think I know the things now that I've done it enough that I need to be involved in. And I think if you future pace and you set the expectations properly, you don't need to be there for every single step. For example, when I take a listing, I tell the seller from day one, I'm going to call you every Monday from 8 to 12. So when we have showings, you don't need to ask me how the showing go. You're not going to hear right away. They're still out viewing. I'm going to get you all of the feedback, and we're going to review that on Monday. So now instead of making 6 calls a week, I'm making 1 call a week where I'm in control of when that happens. So just a lot of things like that.
And the difference being you actually do that.
Right. Yeah.
It isn't just a philosophy.
Right.
When you say you're going to call it Monday, you call it Monday.
And I didn't for
Yeah.
the first half of my career. I was kind of sporadic, and I did it whenever it would come. And I really learned that by having a specific time, it makes it prevents all those other service issues like, why are you not holding it open? Why are we not doing this marketing? Because just making a promise and fulfilling that one promise solves all of those things.
Yeah, no, this is outstanding. Well, in typical fashion, we could spend hours and hours at this because you and I are both passionate about what we do, and we could spend the rest of our life talking about this. But in limiting time with this great podcast, we want to get a chance to thank you, Dan. If you have anybody that wants to go to Las Vegas, here's a good one. If they want to sell their house there, you need to reach out to Dan Mumm, okay? If you like what we're doing here, if you like what the Mike Ferry organization is doing, bringing this kind of quality material to a podcast, subscribe and we'll get you more. Thanks for your time.